Brow.
No, bro. We're live. Supposedly we've been live for 3 seconds now. So
We'll see.
we'll see. Am I even checking the stream right now? I should check the stream.
I'm trying, but it's
Let's see. Let me just hit this twitch.tv/Top Clack. Says we're live, so I'm pretty sure we're live. Fizkey, hey yo, nice for you too. Join us. Lunar's here. Got Texas breakfast. Hopefully not questioning where we are anymore, because we are in fact. The first thing he put in chat was like "Nani?" because it was 6 and we weren't live yet. But hopefully he sees us now.
This might be the latest we've been in like over a year. It's like less than a minute.
Maybe in like 6 months.
Mm.
But for the most part, yeah, we've been pretty good at not being late.
We've been pretty good.
Gio, you got your YouTube notification on your cell phone where the stream showed up in your browser. Don't worry. Give it another 10 minutes and you're going to get another one from the Me6 box bot in our Discord.
Heck yeah. Oh, wait, are we restreaming too?
Yeah. Because it's only on my streaming rig. I don't have it linked for both because I'm a dunce. That's why I had to re-upload. I had to export the VODs I did for my build streams over. But for this computer, for Top Clack, it's Gucci. It goes to both. So
Yeah.
usually there's a count. Today we did not have a countdown. Today we were actually working through some technical stuff, but we're on time enough as it is, IMO. And we have an exciting show today, okay? The news is pretty light, but there's some popcorn to be popped. There's some corn to be popped, as the cool kids say. And we're going to have an amazing guest on later this evening. We're going to have Mr. Ryan Norbauer. You may know him from awesome things as the Norba Force, Norba Touch, and now the Heavy 6. So we're going to be talking to him later on in the show. And if you have any questions for him, save your questions for the Q&A at the end, because that's going to be an exciting time. So
Heck yeah.
let's get on with the show. Hit that intro. They missed out on like 75% of that. I'm sorry.
That's alright.
But we're here. It's Thursday, the 11th of October. Halloween is closing in now. I'm not sure that really matters for people our age. I mean, yeah, Halloween doesn't really matter to me. November matters to me more because I can get cheap Halloween candy that wasn't sold. November 1st. That's the real MVP.
That's value right there.
That's king size Three Musketeer bars for the cheap.
Oof. I haven't had a Three Musketeers in a very long time.
You're missing out on that creamy chocolate goodness.
You know how I feel about creamy and chocolate.
Well, it's Thursday's another day for Top Clack. Brian, how's your week been?
Week has been solid. Well, kind of. I've been pretty sick, although I'm starting to get a little bit better now. I've been living on tea, which has been helping. So I'm doing pretty good, all things considered. Can't complain.
It's pretty
good. How about you, sir?
I've been doing pretty well myself. I've been doing quite a bit of work on my new workbench next to me, which hopefully this light isn't too blinding. I know it's like straight at this camera, but I don't think it's too bad. And it's gonna be it was already an exciting week, and I think it's gonna get even more exciting as the week comes to a close in the next few days. But overall, it's been pretty good. Work's been pretty busy, but keyboards have been even busier, which has been really fun and exciting. Especially exciting because this week we have pretty exciting mail call.
Oh yeah, we have things that people have been waiting for a while.
Yeah. So, mail call.
So
go for it.
So, Huey and I have received our new V2 Zeal switches. Huey's a little bit ahead of me and built up a board with some last night. I'm a little bit behind, but I will catch up shortly. I have 70 of the 62-gram V2, as well as 70 of the Helios. And then I have samples of all the rest. So, they're new Veal stuff. Zeal stuff, man. Like it's crazy. So I've been playing around with them, and they feel pretty darn good and pretty darn different. So the Helios themselves actually feel very, very unlike the V1. Yes. It's like an entirely different form of tactility. I personally like it a lot. It feels much, much closer to something like a Holy Panda, which I am interested in, and less like an upgraded round switch, I guess you could say. So pretty cool stuff there. I have not yet built with them, but Huey has, so maybe Huey can give a quick opinion on how he feels about the new Helios.
Yeah, for anyone who missed out on my stream last night and hasn't seen the VOD, because the VOD is uploading now because I didn't put the VOD on YouTube because I forgot, my bad, and missed out on my T-Rex arm explanation, is... I know, right? I know. The reason it's T-Rex arm, because I use my arms to, like, do force curve graphs, except I was doing force curve graphs facing people, and not like this. I was doing it like this, so all they could see is this when I was trying to describe things, as opposed to like me actually making sense. But essentially, how I feel about them compared to Holy Pandas, I did bring out my Alice with my lubed Holy Pandas, do a side by side with both the Helios, which doesn't really matter for the comparison, but also with my TX60 that I rebuilt with these V2 62 grams, same way as you have. So one major thing I notice is the intro for them are a bit different, and they're a bit different, and that kind of sets the stage to how I view both switches. I don't think that Zeal V2s will replace what Holy Pandas are, but I think they're a better choice for people because they're accessible and they're available. And I do think for the value, even if people are going to complain about the quote-unquote Zeal tax and pay $1 a switch, you're not paying $4.50. That's not a good argument, but they're available. They're great. So the difference I see, Holy Pandas have a nice large round bump, and that bump feels like the beginning. You will tell people, oh yeah, there's a big round bump at the beginning, but what your fingers notice that your brain doesn't notice till later is there's technically a very small lead up to that round bump on a Holy Panda. It's a small, tiny lead up, and then you get this round but short bump. For a Zeal V2, you already start at the bump. You already start the first thing when you press right away, unlike where a Panda, there's a small amount of resistance to get up, and then you're at the peak resistance, and then once you pass that, you're shooting straight down. The Zeal, you're already starting at the peak of the tactility. So when you push down, you feel the instant collapse real quick of the spring. That feels really crisp. So it's kind of like what the Box Royals tried to achieve, but the Box Royals fell short for a lot of people, because a lot of people said it felt intense because it scratched a lot. I felt this kind of gnawing at the top as you went through it. But Zeals don't feel like that. Zeals are smooth. Even though you start at the peak tactility, they're smooth throughout all the way, which is extremely great. This is like unlubed, and I'm excited to lube these pretty soon, maybe even like this weekend. So I've been really, really impressed by these switches, to be perfectly honest. Maybe I'm still in the honeymoon phases because I just built the Zeal 62 gram V2s up. But so far, they have my recommendation. Based off just building it last night, I'm probably going to be placing an order for like 100 of the 62s, 70 and 78s for both the Zeals and the Xylants. So that's like how I feel initially. I'll be working on a video to do more explanations. I will hint in the future possibly have my own machine to do force curve graphs. Can't promise with or without. Can't promise when that might happen, but I might be in the process of assembling a machine to generate my own force curve graphs. I'm busy with things. But we'll see. That might be coming sooner than people think. So I'll be lubing those in the very near future. Pretty excited about those. That's how I feel about them right now.
I'm really stoked to get these on board to try them out. The only thing that I would consider a downfall so far, at least loosely in my hand, is like there's still some spring crunch there. But you can kind of feel it, you can kind of hear it, and I feel like that's usually accentuated on a board. So I might have to try these with a different spring as well, just to see like what kind of differences I can achieve.
Yeah.
But, in terms of overall feel, like the tactility is very, very good. Of course, it's very, very smooth. And these actually use a new top, which has tighter tolerances. And
noticeable.
I'm pretty surprised. It's very noticeable. These feel absurdly smooth, along with being very smooth, very tacky.
Yeah, so interesting.
It's like some kind of magic going on there.
Interesting you brought up that sound, because I did mount 4 on this little steel thing. They do go, 62, 5, 7, 78. And in terms of like spring/leaf sound, I mainly hear it as you go louder for my personal tastes, at least for stock switches, where they're only an issue once you get to the 78s, which at that point I would just say lube it anyways, because lubing switches is good for you. It builds character, as I will someday tell a child of mine to lube all my switches because it builds character. But that's I agree with you. I do hear it. Originally I did hear it on the 67, but I switched that 67 with another 67 sample I had, and it went away. So I'm not sure how consistent it is for 67s, but my general idea is it probably gets worse the heavier, the more force the spring will have to mitigate for compression. So I don't really hear it with the 62s, but as I go heavier, I did hear it. So thing to keep in mind.
Gotcha. We're seeing some questions in chat, and that's totally cool, but we'll save those for the Q&A later. So make sure you hang around for that, and we'll answer all the questions that we possibly can.
Indeed.
But we're rambling a little too long here. Also, mail call, I finally got my windkeyless tofu, which kind of surprised me in a couple ways. I didn't realize it shipped with stabs, which is cool. Unfortunately, these definitely seem like a clone stabilizer, which is kind of a bummer. But oddly enough, they're lubed, which I thought was kind of strange. Not completely lubed to my liking, but they just put a little bit of dab on the wire. Well, I say a little bit of dab, but I showed a picture of it yesterday in the Discord. It's quite a bit of lube. They just kind of like try to shove it in the wire, and like that was it. But kind of interesting there. I realized that I don't have a bit that will fit this tiny, tiny screw hole. So I'm waiting on a new driver set so I can actually open this, so I can, build it and finish it up and stuff. And that'll be pretty cool. And thus concludes my mail call. What about you, Huey?
I got something really cool. I didn't really show it off aside from like an Instagram picture of it in the background. I did get a new Switch mod station. Those of you may know my old Switch mod station is cracked in several places, unfortunately. So I did get this new one in. This one is sponsored by Olivia, because I have some work I need to do for her. So I'm like, hey, can I have this as payment? And she's like, yes, you may have this as payment. I will accept that. I'm like, sweet. So I got a new awesome Switch mod station. It's pretty big. Only downside is there's a logo covering up where I could use 2 more switches, but I can still do 110 switches. So I can still do a full-size keyboard's worth. No problem. So I'm pretty happy about that to mod switches with. And of course, you guys might have seen it on the Instagram or on the build chores. What I actually have to like stand to pick this up. I got this thing. I have to like stand back here to show it off.
It almost looks bigger than you on camera.
Yeah, it's pretty sizable as I disconnect my own headphones and I can't hear anything. But while I reconnect it, I'll explain it real quick because it's very, very unique and interesting. It is a broadcasting editing machine for live broadcasts. So it has a trackball, it has a rotary encoder, it actually has buttons to mark in and out for clips. But the unique thing about this is all the switches inside here are Cherry MX Black switches, and these are the smoothest Cherry MX Black switches I've ever felt in my life. Like, even thinking about all the meetups I've gone to where people have their own MX Black switches. So these are just absolutely smooth. So that's really, really awesome. The next really cool thing is these keycaps. They look like DSA. They are not. They are Cherry M8 profile, which is like DSA but slightly more scooped and with a lower profile cruciform. So they actually sit a little bit lower than DSA on the keycaps, which are really, really cool. They're not double shot, unfortunately. They're laser infilled. So it's going to be a pain to clean these because they're extremely dirty. This board is all metal too, by the way. Yeah. So that's
a real workout.
Yeah.
Pick it up.
So it's pretty sizable. I plan on restoring the board, And then best case scenario, I want to wire it up and actually make it like a working keyboard with working rotary encoder, working trackball, and like working buttons. I have no clue what I'd actually do with them because I don't know where I can actually fit that on a table.
Yep.
Yeah, that's my mail. Oh, and I got a Rama pad. You guys have seen millions of pictures of those online, so I don't think I need to show it off. That's my mail call.
I'm using mine right now.
Nice. I only use mine for, you guys will see, for typing sounds in the future. So I have a plain gray background.
Right.
Iridius, thank you. 2 months in a row.
Yeah, Itchy Ball Zach. We forgot him earlier, but
Yes.
I saw him sub as well. So thank you guys.
5 months in a row
Appreciate
for Itchy Ball Zach. Thank you guys. Thank you.
Heck, yes.
That was those are lengthy mail call. Now what is it, Brian? Now what?
Now we must do the news, and we do have a pretty light news doc today, but we do have some things to talk about. So, and we kind of want to get you guys involved with some of the later topics. We'll let you. But
You guys
let's go through some of the topics that we have.
Okay, let's stealth into this like elite commandos of news that we are and bring up this first topic, which is the interest check for Commando 2020. This is done by Jill32. People who are much older to the community, oh, I need to fix the overlay, may know Jill32 from running the original SA Commando and another set, Valentine of some sort.
Yes. So while you fix that, I'll talk about that a little bit.
Yes.
So now that he has all the kind of crazy military legend molds, he obviously wants to kind of push that with this new set, Commando 2020, which I guess is also kind of a riff on the 88 Commando that he's already done. It's very, very polarizing, to say the least. I mean, if you just look at those legends, like, wow. You have to... This is a set I feel like you have to be really, really, really into this theme to enjoy. Because it is very, very extreme. And there are, like almost every key is a novelty. More or less. It's, like, absolutely ridiculous. So, while this isn't exactly a personal favorite of mine, it is still something to consider if maybe you're into this sort of thing. I believe the last Commando set actually did fairly well. So yeah. I'm gonna glance over to chat real quick to see who likes this set, and it looks like most people do it, which is terribly surprising.
Violet Viceroy with the MVP comment for the aspiring ROTC high school student in your life. That's good.
Well, if we only covered topics that we personally enjoyed, then the show would probably have a lot less news. So that's the way it is. But a very in-your-face kind of set if you're really into this thing.
Yeah.
Maybe some people are.
Yeah. So it seems like this set has almost, at least from our chat, almost infinite dislike. But it's very splitting in the community, which brings us to our next topic, which is, I guess, onward to keyboard news already. This is how short our doc is today. Is the infinite splits. It's a board.
This is really interesting. I personally thought this was a very, very interesting keyboard. So if you remember, it wasn't too long ago we had what is it called? The DC-01. Was that the kind of like modular split board that we talked about a few months back?
I think so.
it's like a split 60, and it also has like a numpad and like a nav cluster, and you can kind of rearrange them how you want, or something like that, if I recall. Anyways, this is kind of in the same vein. You can daisy chain a bunch of parts together. You can, with the exception of like USB limitations, of course, you can use like as many of these as you want. And yeah, it seems like a pretty interesting project. So like he actually makes this comment in here. You could just get like one, use it as a gamepad. You can get two, use it as like a small keyboard. You can get 3 or 4 and use them as like whatever, kind of rearrange them. It's kind of an ortholinear setup, more or less.
Yeah.
So that's kind of your thing. But I like it.
I like the most of the
Like
concept
the
of it. I don't like the X. I will say shout out to Attention of Detail. That's a quartz with a Z quartz layout render, which I thought was nice because most people just render in QWERTY because people don't actually pay attention to the legends on renders for keyboards most of the time. I have a lot of things I don't like about this, and that's just because I type Dvorak. I hate it when you have a compromised layout that sacrifices alpha keys, like the question mark going away, the brackets being moved up to where those are. Yeah, that's like my main things I don't like about it, because that's kind of like a weakness of any kind of compromise, quote unquote compromise, how I define it as a compromising key set, just because I don't type normal. I would like my quotation key next to the semicolon key. I would like my question mark key next to the greater than key. Things like that is what I care about. But I know a lot of people do make those sacrifices, just like they also sacrifice the Y key.
Yeah.
There's no Y key. Why? Tell me, guys, why?
Whoa. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Where is the Y normally in a quartz?
Where, I don't know. There's two Z's.
Oh, maybe that's why.
I'm
a genius. Yeah, I'm sure it's just a render mishap. But anyways, he was like, I'm gonna do this in quartz, and then he's like, by the time we got to the bottom row, he's like, I'm gonna go back to QWERTY. But anyway, the theory behind this is relatively interesting, if nothing else, and I thought that was pretty cool. He says you can daisy chain as much of the 6x5 ortho boards as your USB port power output allows. You could get one for FPS gaming, plug in your main keyboard into the second USB-C port, which is kind of cool. Or you could use several modules to build a keyboard as long as your desk. So, I mean, you could get pretty long with this. I just thought that was kind of cool. Of course, it's still an IC phase, so if this is something that interests you, be sure to show some interest in that comment section of the thread.
For sure. And thanks, Pendamon, for 5 months in a row. Thank you. Is Pendamon a Digimon?
Pendamon?
Pendemon. No, it's just Pendemon. Duh, I'm dumb.
Oh,
Pendamon.
we're trying to get way too fancy with this.
Sorry, guys. I'm just dumb.
That's amazing.
Okay, speaking of things that are potentially amazing, a lot of people do like hot swap, and a lot of people like unique different things for what I would say can be considered a decent value. And that's our next topic, and it's a pre-order, not group buy, not interest check. Although I guess it's group buys and pre-orders can be similar enough. It's the pre-order for the Aurora 96. You might have seen it if you are on the Z Frontier mailing list. It's a $199 96 key hot swappable aluminum mechanical keyboard offered in 3 colors, gray, black, silver, with a small variety of switches, all of which you'll probably switch out as soon as you get it, because those options are kind of meh IMO. But let's go over
the Kale Box Whites and Kale Box Pale Blues are pretty good.
But thick clicks.
I still think they're good. But that's besides the point.
That's beside the point. Let's talk about this keyboard, okay? So we got some pictures, okay? We got a light bar on the bottom facing towards you. One probably big point of disagreement that probably ended up with, due to having them to save costs, are those cone feet, which
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of in the same boat there. I think both of us and a lot of us generally prefer an angled base as opposed to having a flat keyboard with cone feet. But, I imagine at least part of that is going to be cost here. At the end of the day, it's a $200 keyboard. That includes shipping, DHL worldwide. So you don't have to pay shipping on this. That's already included there. And you know, it is a built keyboard. It comes with 2 sets of feet that are different sizes based on what kind of angle you want. So you can use it flat, 5-degree angle, or you can use an 8-degree angle, which I think is pretty smart. If I'm going to see cone feet, I like that idea. Comes with you know, it's already built up. You got hot swappable PCB. You got switches already in there. You get a cable. You get caps that actually don't look that bad for OEM caps. Just saying, like they're not very gamery at all, which I really appreciate. So there's that. It is a tray mount, 96 key. You know, take it or leave it. Color choices pretty weak, but at least they cover the ones that people are most likely to buy.
Yeah. So I mean, if you didn't like the Kira from Input Club and you wanted more aluminum, then I guess this is it for you. It is white LED backlight, RGB flat strip down under. It's a fixed layout, of course, because of hot swap. You know, you got your cherry style stabilizers, not cherry stabilizers, just cherry style stabilizers. So you might want to swap those out. Up to you. At least the feet are magnetic, and they allow for 5 or 8 degree incline for those little cone feet. Bootmapper client, bootmapper firmware says, I'm guessing just bootmapper client, so nice and easy to go. Comes with a cable C to A because USB-C is the future, at least.
It is the future. So yeah, I mean, for $200, you're getting a full keyboard with a fair amount of functionality.
Yeah, and it's shipping out next month.
Yeah, which is
pretty soon.
Pretty cool, honestly.
Pretty gosh darn soon. Maybe I should pick one up to review. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. Pretty nice. I know how you feel about 96 keys, Huey.
Yeah, I feel 90 sick of them.
Wow. Wow, we are good today. We're on a roll.
I'm not pulling the punches, which brings us to our next topic, the Punchy 1800 keyboard, which is an Intercheck brought up today by Punchy Lab. Punchy Lab is by Revo Team, basically.
Yeah, it's the same team. It's just it's their new name. I don't think they go by Revo anymore.
So here it is. This is an 1800 keyboard. What do you think? Design looks pretty clean, I think. Those bezels on the side look not more on the generic side, but I think that's an okay thing for an 1800 because there's just I wouldn't mind, even though I don't honestly prefer 1800 keyboards, I don't mind more of them for some reason. I like looking at them. I don't think I'd like owning them. I don't own one yet, but I like looking at them.
It's a really cool way to show off caps, honestly. You get like a lot of keycaps on that. And because of like all the extra metal like in spacers in between stuff, how like the arrow keys are like segregated and stuff.
Yeah.
Like the numpad, like the cases usually look pretty good because there is still so much case going on, but you can show off so many caps. Design here pretty good. I guess it's not too minimalistic, but it kind of pays homage to older 1800 style boards, which I do like. Yeah, not a whole lot to say other than that. There's not a ton of info here. This is a very early IC. There's no kind of pricing, really any details. It's more just, here are some pictures. Do you like it? Not like it?
I like it. I don't know if I'd buy it, but I do like it.
What if it came with a half plate?
I would like it a lot more.
Oh, boy.
Oof, half plates. Off topic real quick, but half plates, JERA06, my top mounted PCB mount board, should be shipping next month.
Oh, that is really cool.
As soon, early as next week, they said, but if they say that, I'm going to say next month then. But this board itself, man, if it's like low enough, I might consider it. I like the look overall. Because of the bottom, it kind of reminds me just a little bit of the like an 1800 version of the M0110, with how the edges, the corners on the bottom, you know, have those little seams that head to that center angled portion. It a little bit reminds me of that. I like that. I like that.
Yeah, I mean it's a good looking board. We'll have to wait for some more info though. Hopefully we can get a price. I would ballpark this at
$350.
Yeah, I was gonna say like 340, maybe 50. It'll come with a PCB and plate, obviously. And yeah, probably starting at like 330 or more.
Without PP and shipping.
Yeah, without PP and without shipping. But you got to include that PP.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move into some more. I guess it's fair to say controversial topic right now.
Should I get my skepticism hat on?
No.
Okay.
But
I have it ready though.
Because I have more information than a lot of these other.
Yes. So how about I'll start this, and then we'll go to your information. So on Monday, Supervan posted an interest check on Reddit and on Geek Hack about a new original quote Panda quote linear switch that was met with a lot of friction by both communities, which Supervan, also known as Saint Bowen, responded with friction as well, and this has been a very intense back and forth. According to the post, Brian and I, as well as Walker Stop, will be receiving samples. I have talked with Saint Bowen. Brian has talked with Saint Bowen. I haven't talked to him for the past week, I think. Brian, you probably heard us talk to him sooner.
We go back and forth almost daily.
Walker, I'm pretty sure, go back with him daily as well. So I didn't really know like much. He's like, "Hey, I have this thing I want to try out." I'm like, "Cool, awesome." And then like on Monday, he just like sent me a link to this. I'm like, "Oh." And I started reading through the comments and stuff. I'm like, just gonna grab this bucket of popcorn, gonna grab some extra melted butter.
Honestly, the Geek Hack thread is a lot less hostile than the Reddit. Most people in the Geek Hack thread are pretty in favor of this. Reddit was a lot more skeptical because they don't really know like this person, and they're just like, oh, the molds were destroyed for the pandas, so it can't ever be done again. And that's not really what happened. The molds weren't destroyed; they were actually worn out. But they can either be fixed or replaced in theory, and so that's what this IC is kind of about. The idea is he's going to rehash the Panda linear switch under the B-Sun logo instead of the Inver logo. And he's going to hopefully get these out to the community for a fraction of the cost of what people are paying for them on the aftermarket right now. Look, Pandas are popular. They're very in demand, particularly for mods like the Holy Panda Switch. And some people are paying $4, $5, even $6 per Switch for a Panda Switch. Because, when they first ran, they couldn't even sell. Like, it took so long to sell out because as a single standalone Switch, they're not everyone's favorite. They're not very smooth. They have some issues. They have some cool parts.
They have character.
They have character. I actually thought they were interesting.
I like them too.
Yeah, I mean they're not a smooth Switch. No one's going to argue that they are. But despite that, they have this ample character where they can beef up the tactility on tactile stems, which is kind of what made them rise to popularity to begin with when people started using Helios stems in them. The Xanda came about, and then I tried a Halo stem in them back when Huey and I first got our Halo prototypes, and I was like, whoa, this is unlike anything else, and thus the Holy Panda was born, and a lot of people liked it. And so a lot of people were trying to make it and search for it, and they were paying out the ass for these Switches, because there's not a whole lot of Pandas like on the market right now. Like, it's just super limited. And so this guy is trying to fix this. I don't have like a ton of information on this. I have some information on this guy that I can't share. But from my perception, he does seem very genuine and very trustworthy. And based on who he is, I do not doubt for a second that he can pull this off. So hopefully this will totally work out and get some more Pandas on the market that people can use to mod or whatever, and they'll be a lot cheaper, and that'll be really cool. So really looking forward to this. And yeah, I'm curious what other people think about this in the chat, because the threads they're kind of back and forth. A lot of people are really, really into this, and they're totally all about it. And some people are super skeptical. Some people are like making claims like, "Oh, it's going to be, you know, a totally different Switch. It's going to be like a normal B-Sun Switch, and it won't be a Panda." Or like some guy was claiming like they could be, what if they're old Pandas that just have new tops on them? And it's like, guys, put the pitchforks away. Like we're getting samples. As far as I'm aware, Top Clack is going to get 300 pieces, so 300 Switches for Huey and I to test with, and I will be trying, if we do get that many, I'm going to be sending some out to other people that have experience with pandas and holy pandas, trying to get you know, gauge how proper these actually will be. And that's going to be the hope there. I'll be testing them directly against my holy pandas, my original granddaddy holy panda board. So, you know, hopefully we'll get something cool out of this. But like, there's like very little risk to anyone here. Like, we're getting samples for free. They're going to be sent around to people that you guys know and trust. And then hopefully something comes about this. I don't understand why everyone's so skeptical about this at the moment. But
we'll have to see. Yeah, so I'm the same way. I only need enough to build like one board, and I'm like Brian. I'll be sending out a lot of my extras to other people I know who have holy pandas or have had holy pandas and holy pandas. So even though St. Bowen's only sending it to 3 people, I know at least Brian and I are gonna diffuse it more because we want to diffuse it more.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't know about Walker. Hopefully Walker will do the same. Or burn switches. I'm not sure. I'm hoping he burns at least one though.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like Walker, if anyone gets to the bottom of whether these switches are going to be a perfect copy or not, it's going to be Walker. Like, he's been on top of shit lately when it comes to science stuff. He gets really down and dirty with it. He's like completely OCD about it. So I'm really glad that he's getting some switches. That's very cool. And hopefully we can make something happen here. The Sweaty Eddie, thank you so much for all the bits. Appreciate that. But yeah. So yeah, how do people feel about this? Is this like the worst thing ever to happen in the community? Like, what's the big deal here, guys? Or is this actually like a good thing, and you're looking forward to this? I've already been seeing a lot of people trying to sell their holy pandas nowadays, like in preparation for this,
with varying levels of success.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm partially skeptical because I haven't talked to St. Bone that much. He's like, "Hey, you want this?" I'm like, "Okay, I guess. I don't know what this is until now, basically, to a degree." But I mean, it's something that if it's true, I want to happen because it's basically at this point, unless it's more than $4 a Switch, only going to be benefiting the community. So, especially now when so one of the things I said to my friends and quite a few people I talked with is like, just change the name.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea overall. But here's the problem with that. Then people won't know they're actually Panda Switch.
And you know what? I think that'd be completely okay if like he just like, I have these new linears. I want these people to try it out. We try it out, and then we independently just discovered that they were basically. Well, if I was him, I would have done that because that would have been a more natural way to market these as opposed to like, "Hi, I have this," and there are already a lot of skeptics. But maybe he didn't gauge the community enough about what the community thinks they know or knows about the situation. That's what I would have done if I was him. I would have just released them on reviewers and let reviewers put the puzzle pieces together, because we would have put the puzzle pieces together, right? Like,
that's true, but I mean, also there's, when you're trying to sell a Switch, there are obviously going to be people that aren't going to be that aren't going to be watching us, and people aren't going to know that like this is a potential piece of a hybrid Switch for Holy Panda, or I mean, insert new name here. But yeah, you're gonna sell more if you just call it a Panda Switch, because that's what's in demand. If you, but I do agree calling it something new would have been better. But I think that's the logic behind not doing it. It's going to be a lot easier to sell a higher quantity and hit a lower like MOQ or a lower price for a higher MOQ if you just
Yeah.
call it Panda, because that's what people want right now.
But for now, we'll have to see. So let's move on to our next topic, in which I think getting my skeptical hat is a good idea now.
Yeah, so this is another pretty controversial topic right now going on in the community, and we actually have a couple posts to share here. So here's the first post, and you'll notice that this is actually a comment, but the original post was deleted by the user, who I'm not going to name. Matter. Most of you might know who it is. It's kind of irrelevant. But this guy copy pasted the post and put it in the comments so other people can see. So that is kind of helpful for this as well. So basically, here's the situation. Where did you get that hat?
I don't know, dude.
Like what is that?
Actually, it's supposed to. I can't put it on properly because of my headphones. It's supposed to go like this.
Oh, okay. Very nice.
I can hear you, so it's okay.
That is perfectly fantastic. Anyway, so the general theory here by this guy in the post is that there is an upcoming meetup called Mechanicon, which is happening in Germany on the 3rd of next month. And there is an organizer for the meetup, and there is a sponsor for the meetup. And crap, why is the name slipping me right now? Who is Candy? Okay, Candy Keys. Candy Keys is the sponsor for the meetup, and the organizer, whether it was between the organizer and Candy Keys or just the organizer, has decided that that will be the sole sponsor, and that will be the only vendor that can show up as a vendor for the community at this meetup. Other vendors are welcome to show up as, just the normal pedestrians that are just, meandering around the meetup. But you cannot set up like a booth. You cannot, portray yourself as a vendor there because of that. And that is a really interesting thing to think about. And basically, this user decided to make a post about it and say that this effing sucks. And, other vendors should be able to show off their stuff and, do their thing at the meetup, because that's kind of the spirit of the community. And, we should be supporting that kind of thing because, it helps the community grow, and that's the spirit of this community. And, pushing everyone forward, because like all of our vendors and stuff are also enthusiasts just like us. This isn't a huge hobby. All of us are just trying to, make our way here. And, in that sense, I fully agree. And, this effing sucks, basically. Sweaty Eddie, thank you again for all the bits. Appreciate that. But, yeah, so there's kind of some drama going on here. And it kind of progresses a little bit. I'm going to share another post now.
So, I have some words to say about this as a meetup organizer, because I also go through a lot of the things that the meetup organizer talked about and mentioned. So a big thing about the meetup organizer that talked about, this is enough of this now, was that, this is their meetup. They've enough to think about. They wanted to be fair to their primary sponsor. They wanted to be fair to their primary sponsor. That's what their main thing, and they wanted to be really simple about it. They made the decision, so it's all on the organizer, not on Candy Keys. Candy Keys and both the organizers both admitted, assuming they're both not lying, it is completely the decision of Christian, one of the organizers of the Mechanicon meetup, who made this decision on his own. So I guess Christian also did not ask any of the other organizers. But you said his main thing is it's his meetup. He wants to make it easy for him. Making it easy for yourself is fine. But as a fellow meetup organizer, I don't think having the option for other vendors to represent themselves makes it any harder for you. And I'm speaking as a current meetup organizer. I know, Brian, you are a now basically retired meetup organizer. And I still do meetups in official capacity. My next one's in November. Yay, coming up in basically a month. And you know what? My co-organizer has traditionally been, when I had to start using co-organizers, Andrew the Cashman, CEO of Imba Club, as a co-organizer. This is the first time where it's not Andrew who's my co-organizer as an individual, but actual Kono.store is my co-organizer. And you know what? We have reached out to a lot of vendors to invite them to the meetup and represent themselves in official capacity. And you know what? It cost me 5 minutes an email to contact Novel Keys, GMK, Zeal, Azio, Cherry, Kiowa, Hex Keys, Kono, Waz Keyboards, Norbauer, KVD Fans, Pluggables, Mashup, PMK, OLKB, Kibio, Desk Candy, Modern Coupe, MK.com, Max Keyboards, Max Key, Datamancer, Clueboards. And you know what? Cost me nothing. If anything, it makes me doing a meetup easier, because I'm spending my own money out of my wallet, just like Christian is, to host a meetup. And you know what? My wallet doesn't have to leak as much money for this meetup, because I have all of these awesome sponsors, all these other vendors who want to attend, who want to help support the meetup. And any of the other vendors who'd want to support Mechanicon would probably be the same thing, because they're a part of the community as much as a meetup organizer is, as much as any other individual member, as much as Candy Keys. So I don't know why you think this is fair to Candy Keys in particular. They're a majority sponsor. Kono is a majority sponsor of the NorCal Meetup. They put down the deposit for the venue, and I still owe them hundreds of dollars for that, technically. And you know what? They're like, oh, we're going to invite like these people. Huey, can you invite these people? And let's split up the list of inviting all these awesome people for an awesome meetup, because we're a community where the more is the merrier. And I have a big disagreement with the mentality of Mechanicon and how this one is being... So I completely agree with Jay, except I'm not mad at Candy Keys, because according to the posts that are put down, Candy Keys was not responsible for the decision. But I am upset at the organizer as an organizer myself. Because I know what this organizer goes through for a meetup, looking for a venue, having to like count your pennies and make sure, can I afford this venue to, fit this many people? And then making sure the funds are there, making sure co-organizers are on board, scoping the venue, all the small stuff. I go through it too. But, I think that if you wanted to truly make it easier on yourself, open it up to other vendors. I think you'll only have a better meetup if you proceed with that route. This kind of
and another thing on the same vein, like if you're too busy to like plan a meetup, have someone help you. Like, there's gonna be someone going to this meetup that would be totally okay with like putting in a couple minutes to email other sponsors or whatever, or help out. And like Huey mentioned, if it's a monetary issue, like if you're paying a bunch of money for this, like having the other sponsors there, like they'll usually kick in money if they can, set up a little bit of a booth and show off their stuff. It's all a happy time. All the meetups that I've been to, like the larger ones where they actually have vendors there, showing off their stuff, it's been great. It's not like a hate fest, and there's no direct competition in the sense that like they're, I mean, obviously they are competing with each other as different vendors. That's how it works. When vendors compete, the customer wins.
And you know what? Sometimes the funniest thing happens when multiple vendors attend a meetup I never thought would happen. At the last NorCal meetup, okay? Center table, we had Cherry, who came from Germany. And then next to them, 4 feet away, we had Mike of Novel Keys, who just released his big switches. So he was setting up his big switches, and Cherry's like, whoa, those are awesome. Could you manufacture those for us? And Mike's just like, I work with Kale. And Cherry was just like, oh.
That's
I was so happy in my life I existed to witness that moment.
I wish I was standing close enough to at that point. But yeah, I mean, I get wanting to make things easier on yourself, but I don't think this guy realizes how easy it can still be, even by allowing other vendors. And I really do think that other vendors should be allowed. Like, meetups are becoming such a big thing, both for consumers and vendors, and just mechanical enthusiasts alike. I think you really need to push everything at a meetup. I think we had a guest on recently. I think we were talking to this about, but like meetups are kind of becoming closer to convention.
Yeah, I've already been talking with my organizers. The next meetup I do, we're gonna actually have to get like a small hall and actually have like pre-made booths for vendors and actually host it as a convention for the next meetup I do.
Yeah, and you know what? That'd be effing awesome. Like, it would be so cool. It only benefits the community. So, yeah, I don't really completely understand where this guy is coming from. I don't think it would be much harder, if at all. And he'd probably save money. And, like, even if he can't do it himself, you know, if he has co-organizers, have one of them do it. And if he doesn't have co-organizers, get a co-organizer. There's so many people that are nice to this community that are willing to help out. So many people.
I mean, and the other argument, if you think it's unfair to Candy Keys, why don't you ask them? Candy says that they weren't responsible for the decision you made, and you said you didn't even inform them of this decision. Why not ask Candy Keys how they would feel if other vendors were allowed? I'm pretty sure they'd be okay with it.
They probably would be, yeah.
So, I mean, like, ask. I know at the end of the day, you're right. It is your meetup. It is a private meetup that you choose to host, and you can ultimately do whatever you want at your meetup. But I worry decisions, Christian, that you take in this endeavor will hurt the meetup. And I want all meetups to succeed. And that's why I'm so passionate about this. I'm so passionate. We've gone overtime. So big apologies to Ryan Norbauer, which we'll be dialing in a moment. We can talk about this much more later, but you guys know my stance. I've done meetups for 3 years now, going on 4, and this means a lot to me. Let's go to literally just a black screen. No, I'll go to the insert transition here screen.
Well, we have some things to talk about.
Oh, we do? We do. We should like save it, but that's fine. Yes, you're right. We should talk about those.
Yes. So we'll skip this.
I'll do a quick shout out on that at the end, the very end.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. So Top Clack wouldn't be Top Clack without our amazing sponsors, and for that we give them some verbal shout out and positivity for the cool things that they do and the help that they provide to us. So of course we have lots of sponsors. Well, lots. Four. a fair amount. But you know, we have some good ones because we choose to be sponsored by people that we actually like instead of people that offer. So of course we can start out with Novel Keys here, who has lots of cool desk mats and switches going on now. He's got all of the updated box switches now in stock. So you know, if you don't want to shatter your keycaps, then bam, here's the new stuff. GMK Chocolatier has opened up for group buy if you want to check that out. He's got a Serica desk pads as well as the SA Violet on Cream that he's been working on. Pretty cool stuff there. And yeah, while you're there, use promo code TOPCLACK. You can get 5% off your entire order. You know, it might save you a few bucks. So it's a big brain play, basically. Big brain play.
Speaking of big brain plays, I think it's a good idea, as a personal recommendation, to check out our next sponsor, Zeal PC, Zeal Generation, who is running a group buy for the Helios and the V2s of the Xylants and the Zeals. Of course, you can also pick up the new group buy for the PCB and some stabilizers if you want some nice quality ones. These switches, honestly, at the moment, I'd highly recommend. I've used them, sure, less than 24 hours total at the moment. But right now, I think they are extremely amazing. I have really high hopes for them, high expectations. I just finished recording late last night a typing sounds of the stock Helios. That's going to be uploaded soon. Then I'm going to desolder that board, and I'm going to lube those Helios up for comparison. It's going to be in the same board, same keycaps, everything. So expect that. Expect one of them, the unlubed typing sounds, to come out soon. Lubed later. But honestly, Zeal PC, check out those switches. I'm pretty sure there will be, hopefully, if you're into linears or tactiles, something that at least interests you, and I think they're definitely worth checking out. This is his most exciting release since his original.
Yeah, no, this is honestly way cooler than I was expecting. Totally honest. And I'm pretty stoked to use mine as well. But moving on, we have Kono.store, who is run by Input Club. All sorts of cool things, including night foxes, white foxes. They got the group buy right now for SA Symbiosis and SA Royalty. I really like that Symbiosis personally. GMK Monochrome is still open, I think, for 4 more days until the 15th. Of course, they have interest checks up as well, including one for GMK Shoko, which I am personally a big fan of. So you should check that out as well.
Last but not least, we have the Beast in the East, Z Frontier. Check out their update page. It seems like they've been consistent now at doing that update page. They're doing their pre-orders for an awesome 96 aluminum board. While I may have qualms about cone feet, I do admit that for an all-aluminum package, ready to rock out of the box, it's not a bad idea if you or a friend are looking for your first 96 key or even first mechanical keyboard. It's kind of a solid package altogether with a lot of mobility in terms of being able to change your switches without soldering, change your keycaps nice and easy with the 96 key layouts. So check that out when you get a chance. Easy to reprogram. You got a lot of RGBs underneath and white in-switch LEDs. Yeah, and check out all their interest checks. We're going to have some exciting things coming out soon, like that H85.
Yeah, so actually, real quick touch up on this page. I'm gonna link something in chat for you guys. So check out this upcoming projects page. If you scroll down a ways to the up and coming section, you might notice a couple interesting things. First thing I noticed was the key-rated UV printed ABS keycaps cherry profile. So these are going to be really interesting. And I was talking to Z Frontier about this last night. It's going to have a lot of different options. They look honestly pretty good. So pretty excited for that, and you'll notice a few other cool things as well as GMK Calm Depths by Oblatz. Cool. So yeah, lots of cool things on that page. This page is for me. So yeah, sure to check that out. All right, moving on. We will be bringing on the one, the only Ryan Norbauer to join us for the show today.
I am putting us on the transition screen.
I am dialing him in via Skype Arena.
Ring, ring, ring. Banana phone. Ring, ring, ring. Banana phone. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Alright, hopefully we can get some video on him shortly.
Don't forget to mute the Skype if you have not done so, Ryan, as well. When you get a chance.
Can you guys hear me now?
We can hear you twice.
We can hear you now.
Oh, let me mute. Sorry. All right. Better?
Better. Now we just need to get video going. I think we should be good to go.
Oh.
We're getting closer, guys. Getting closer.
Perfect. We have video, and we have one and only Ryan Norbauer. Thank you so much for returning to talk to us this week on Top Clack. How are you doing today?
I'm doing quite well, thank you.
Fantastic.
You guys?
Terrible. I'm doing absolutely terrible.
I heard that long rant there.
Yeah, that was my bad. I took up a lot of
Still
time.
Recovering.
Yeah,
it's quite all right.
That's. We were expecting to rant that long, but you know, sometimes it just happens. Anyways, we are all doing well. So you've been on the show before, but it's been a little bit of time. So why don't you just give a quick recap on who you might be, some of the people that might not know.
Who I might be. Let's see. So my name is Ryan Norbauer. I consider myself an industrial designer these days. Although the things that I do in terms of this sort of what looks like professional design really grew entirely out of my hobbies. And my two greatest hobbies in life are an affection for keyboards and Star Trek. So lately I've been making products for a company called Roddenberry Entertainment, which makes like officially licensed replicas of Star Trek props. And I also make a lot of keyboard housings that I sell to my fellow enthusiasts. And I also, sort of at an intersection between the two of those, did a keycap set that was Star Trek themed for Roddenberry Entertainment. Cool.
So let's take a little walkthrough of what you've kind of been up to lately. So a lot of people might know you for things like the Norba Touch, which I know you really strongly hate that name. but we're going to call it that anyways because it's way easier. And the Normal Force, which has been shipping out lately, which a lot of people have been really excited to get. So now you're moving on to the Heavy 6, which is the 660C themed keyboard case. So why don't you take us through a little walkthrough about how that's been going for you and why you decided to move on to something like that.
Sure. So I guess because of my 2 housings I've done in the past, I've come to be associated with Topra keyboards, which is entirely reasonable. It is probably my favorite switch, although not exclusively so. And so in doing the housings for the, there's the Heavy 6. In doing the keyboards for the Nova Touch and for the Real Force, people just, come to think of me as someone who is interested in doing Topra boards. And naturally, I have been asked many, many times about doing a housing for the FC660C. I was originally hesitant to do that because it's not a keyboard that I normally use. I tend to not like keyboards smaller than TKLs, honestly. And so I was a little bit resistant over time, but so many people asked me so many times that I decided to take a crack at it. And so I took it as an opportunity to take it as making an interesting design challenge. And I think I approached the design of this one a little bit differently than I have other ones in the past, just to make it a little bit more interesting and maybe to better complement what that board is in terms of I think of it as being this very small and compact thing. And so it was interesting to me to figure out how to accentuate that in the design of the case, which is where I came up with the idea of just making it heavy essentially by having a steel backplate and also having a look that's a little bit more sort of beefy and industrial. Again, just kind of playing with designs, trying to do some new and interesting things. So that's sort of the rationale of that.
Okay, so something I'm genuinely curious in is why the monolith? So if anyone isn't aware of what the Heavy just kind of explained it, it's a aftermarket case for the 660C that you can put your Topra Leopold keyboard in, just like Huey is showing off there. There's a version that is PVD coated stainless steel, and it comes with a fairly seemingly high price tag of $900. Can you walk us through what the decision was for doing this so-called monolith? And I'm very curious to know how many you plan to sell of those.
Sure. So first of all, I plan to sell approximately 0 of them. I've sold 20 of them so far. And I've been having conversations with many people today who are interested in getting them, but actually might want to get them powder coated instead of the standard black PVD finish. So that's infinitely more than I expected to sell, which is interesting. I think part of it, so for me at least, it was just kind of the ultimate carrying to its ultimate absurd conclusion, the idea of making a super heavy, super compact Topra keyboard. And I arrived at the heaviness of the original design by making a steel backplate. I know that, brass is very popular for weights for this purpose. But in speaking to PVD coating companies, they said that they actually prefer to work with steel because they don't have to pre-coat it first. They can actually PVD coat directly onto the steel. And there are certain inherent problems with the undercoating, underplating layer. So, if you actually look at the properties of steel versus brass, they're very similar in terms of density and weight. So I originally arrived at this idea of a steel backplate to add weight. And the idea occurred to me, I don't even remember now whether it was someone else proposed it or I just thought of it to be absurd. Well, what would the weight be if we made the entire thing out of steel? So I calculated it out as comes to 8 pounds or something like that. Maybe might be 9 with the keyboard installed. I can't remember, but it's really heavy. And so I kind of just like the idea of doing things that are completely absurd. That's the only reason I even do this stuff is just an aesthetic oasis from the boredom of existence. And so I like the idea of making. So I'm a little bit disappointed in myself in a sense. It is my objective to make and sell at least to a non-trivial number of people a $1,000 keyboard at some point in my life. Just again, for the absurdity of it, which I appreciate at some level, because most people can't understand the concept of spending more than $10 on a keyboard. And I enjoy, telling people about that. but you know, I came up almost close to that. I just couldn't like bring myself to quite charge that for this, you know, because it's like it's $900 for a keyboard that doesn't include the keyboard, right? And so, but actually compared to, you know, my normal safety margins on top of stuff, my margin on the steel version, which I'm calling the monolith, is extremely thin, which makes me a little bit nervous because like if a couple of them get damaged, it could be problematic. But whatever. So believe it or not, it's not because I'm marking it up a ton. It's just incredibly expensive to machine stainless steel for a couple of reasons. If you're interested, it's very rough on the tool, and so you actually have to go through the tooling more frequently. And secondly, you just have to go much more slowly. And the principal cost with parts like this is really the machine time and not so much the material. And so, you know, you take this enormous block of steel and you slowly melt it down, and you're paying basically by the minute that you're in the machine. So it's fantastically expensive. It's also more expensive to ship around and all that, but it is what it is. And some people seem to be really into that idea. And again, I like to think that there are people who appreciate just the sheer lavishness of it. Like if you're going to take an idea and execute it on an idea for an aesthetic or conceptual, fanciful reason, might as well take it to its most ridiculous conclusion. So I appreciate that as well. I will not actually probably have one for myself though, because it's too expensive.
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, some people are pretty surprised, it seems, that you're even able to sell 20 of them, which I am blown away by that number. I was expecting 5. It's like 5 at most.
I think it was 5 in the first like 2 minutes or so.
Yeah, not to say
like
it's not
that,
an awesome project, but like I feel like there are so few people that can justify spending $900 on a keyboard case. But that's
how many of the people who spent, I don't know if maybe you may not know on top of your head, but how many people do you think who spent on the monolith, the 900, went the extra mile and also got the case, bringing their sum total to be over 1,000?
Every single one of them, so far as I know.
Really?
There you go.
Yeah, which is interesting because otherwise I haven't sold a huge. But I think it's just, again, there are certain people who are, you know, either really into this particular keyboard, or just you know, like the sort of luxury aesthetic brinksmanship that I've been into lately and want to support it, which is totally cool by me because it's fun. I mean, the idea of making this sort of weird luxury, it's like a nerd handbag basically. It's made in California. It has these leather accents, and it has the hand sewn bullion wire patches, and I like the ridiculousess of it. I never thought I would be able to get to make a project like this. I think I told you guys last time I'm a bit of a bag whore, and I love collecting various briefcases and stuff like that. And so it's very fun for me to be able to actually make stuff that's connected to my hobby that I feel is actually pretty good quality. But the bag too is quite expensive, made in California and in small quantity.
Yeah, that bag seems pretty ridiculous.
I visited the factory recently and shot some video. They're making a bag for me for TKL sized boards, so it fits up to the Norbauer. And in fact, the zipper pull on the other bag is a little mini Norbauer. But it was cool to visit the factory down in San Diego. The guy who runs it's really sort of a cool Turkish guy. And the people who are working there have a particular specialty in leatherwork, and are really good with that kind of stuff. So I'm actually talking to them about doing desk mats soon. But I shot a bunch of video, and I put a little bit of a tease of that on my Instagram. But I'm going to do a big sort of full video showing how the TKL bags are made sometime soon.
Nice. So that particular bag that you're selling now only fits up to the Heavy 6 then?
It's specifically made for the Heavy 6, or
okay.
the FC660C if you wanted to use it without the aluminum case.
Let's be honest, nobody's going to do that.
I've had a couple of people actually buy it and not buy a Heavy 6. But, you know, who knows what they're going to use it for. They're probably, you know, there are other keyboards in probably fit.
Yeah.
You know, it's a little bit roomy for HHKB, but it would be fine for that.
So I think recently on your Instagram, you also mentioned I think you're in LA for a fabric convention.
Correct, the
Market?
LA Textile Fair.
Yes, the LA Textile Fair. I remember seeing that. It made me think, you have this bag, and now you've let us know you have more bags on the way, or is there going to be different materials you're going to be playing with that you might have discovered or found more information about while you were there?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's my intention with each of these bags to make them just like a single limited edition. Whatever exists in its current form in a given run, that'll probably be the only I will make of that particular design. So this one is smaller, specifically sized to fit the Heavy 6. The other one is and the material on the one you have there, Huey, is ballistic nylon. The material on the TKL bag is Cordura. And so the design is ever so slightly different. It has a slightly different look. Cordura is probably a little bit more water resistant, but they're both pretty good in that respect. And the TKL bag has like some more Molly stuff on the front, and it has a numpad bag that attaches to it onto the Molly loops. And then I think maybe for the next bag, I've been looking at like different interesting materials. And there was this amazing vendor at the textile fair that had a huge array of Japanese selvage denims. And he had a particular one that is kind of like a little bit knobby in that like the underlying lighter color fabric would show through the dark navy denim, and it created this almost like Starfield effect. And I thought it would be interesting to use that as like the exterior shell on a bag, maybe. So that's one thing I'm thinking about. But a big part of why I was there also was to look at different kinds of leather for leather desk mats.
Wow. I'm really looking forward to all these bags and desk mats coming out. I also love the fact that this is a keyboard show and we're talking about textiles.
Well, it's important.
Well,
it's all about infusing this extremely mundane object with as much like aesthetic whimsy as we possibly can, or at least that's what it's all about for me.
Yeah, I mean, we've known for a while now that people in this hobby will pay a lot for aesthetic, even if it doesn't include function. So sure. I think your approach to the market is actually very, very fun and very, very refreshing. That you're just wanting and willing to do so many outrageous and ridiculous things.
Well, another way to put it is it's extremely self-indulgent. I think if I were approaching my keyboard stuff as a business that I wanted to optimize for profitability, my strategy is not really a very good one. Because I tend to focus on like spending a great deal of effort to arrange extremely small quantity production runs of things, which is always logistically and economically very challenging. But if it weren't for approaching things in this way, I probably wouldn't be doing it. So it is what it is.
I remember
it's not a market strategy, though.
Yeah, when you came to Seattle, I remember you were telling me that you're more or less a workaholic. And so that this kind of strategy is right up your alley, even if it's not, even if it doesn't make as much sense to a lot of other people.
Yeah, I mean, my objective really is to try to sell fewer keyboards. I think over the last, let's see, over the past year, I'm sure that at least 1,000 keyboards have come through my living room and shipped to people, probably more than that. And by keyboards, I mean keyboard housings. This has been a really fun and enjoyable playground for me, but sometimes it really feels like I'm sort of running a sort of factory assembly line process rather than spending as much time as I would like on design and creation and curation of stuff like that. And so there are a couple of strategies I'm trying to employ to control that a little bit. One of them is I'm trying to learn to ask for a little bit of help from time to time. Like I'm going to actually try to outsource the shipping of the Heavy 6s. To a third-party fulfillment company, and the another part of it is just trying to letting myself go in terms of those aesthetic constraints and not worrying about if stuff gets a little bit more expensive, both because it's more personally rewarding for me to make something that like meets this weird creative vision, but it means I just have to spend less time shipping stuff, and I feel bad that will necessarily. I mean, we had a little discussion about this in the Heavy 6 thread on Keep Talk, which is that, unfortunately that means that I will probably to some extent exclude some people. But I think that, you know, I'm never going to make something that's like that's completely out of accessibility for somebody living in the United States who's employed, right? It's just like, it's a question of what's important to you. You know, I'm exceedingly cheap about a lot of things in my life, but there are a few things on which I'm very happy to spend a ridiculous amount of money. And I feel like a lot of people are that way. It's just like, you know, how do you want to prioritize things? And for me, personally, I get a lot of the pleasure in my life that I derive is from those few things that I really splurge a huge amount of money on, right? And oftentimes I feel a closer connection to the creator of those things than other random things that I buy in my life. And I kind of like a person who provides a small number of people with those things in their life, not necessarily somebody who's building a huge keyboard empire.
It's fair.
That's totally fair. In that same sense, yeah. So in that same sense, like, what do you kind of see for the future of keyboards or Norbauer and Co? Do you actually plan to continue, like, really pushing something new and ridiculous, or are you going to kind of continue on the same kind of path that you're currently on, or do you plan to kind of expand, try to do other things as well?
So I don't know. I think that so I think I'm going to focus a little bit more on keyboards rather than some of the other stuff I've been doing over the next year or so. Just because because of like the bag and Heavy 6 and all the weird stuff I've been doing lately, I feel like it's a little bit more creatively rewarding, and I have a much more direct connection with the people who are actually consuming it, unlike other things that I design or make where I don't have any contact with the person who's buying it. But you know, I see people at meetups, and I'm very oddly, I am not infrequently recognized in public as like sometimes for the Star Trek stuff, but honestly mostly for keyboard things, and that's. It's bizarre and interesting to me, but it's kind of rewarding that like some people are connecting with what I'm doing, and so and you know, like going to meetups and talking to people who are like really into whatever thing that they got from me. I have email correspondence with keyboard people all day long. That's just like, that's more rewarding to me. So I'm starting to focus more on keyboard stuff in general, I think, over the coming year. Relative to other things, but also the idea that I have, and I've talked about this in a couple of other places, is I would like, after the Heavy 6 and maybe another Toper board I might possibly look at doing, I would like to focus on products that bring people into the keyboard world. So, but still like within my weird niche of kind of like sort of luxury products, which is to say, you know, using unusual materials or focusing on quality, using more expensive factories, stuff like that. But looking to reach out to people who aren't necessarily part of the keyboard world yet, but who maybe spend a lot of money on audio equipment or watches or cars, or people who are just into like really nice physical objects, but who maybe don't realize that keyboards are a thing that to which they can apply that. So I've been talking to the folks at Input Club about supplying me with TKL PCBs from their new run of that keyboard, which is a sort of like version of the K-type, essentially. It's like an iteration of that, I suppose.
The re-type, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so my idea is that I would eventually like to start, you know, so I go around, I talk to people about what I do, and it's always at the very least good for a laugh. And they're like, so... And then sometimes I'll show them pictures on Instagram or whatever. And they'll be like, oh, that's really, buy that. But the problem is, like, first you'd have to join a group buy and the product won't be ready for 6 months. And then you'd have to buy another keyboard and take it apart and buy the necessary tools for that and be comfortable avoiding your warranty. And suddenly people become less interested, right? And so my idea is I would love to be able to actually sell people a keyboard that they could plug in and use. And my sort of medium-term objective is to basically be able to do that. Have people select their, essentially make a switch choice, but otherwise have a curated selection of in-stock, really nice housings that may be specifically paired with a key set. Something like that. It's this sort of abstract idea that I have. It'll probably be really expensive to figure out how to do it, so I'm not sure whether it'll actually be feasible, but it is this sort of crazy dream that I have of like selling MX compatible keyboards for people who really want something super nice to have on their desk, but maybe aren't ready to build it themselves.
So you mentioned, building up keyboards that people can plug in and use, and, matching specific materials or designs with key sets. So do you possibly already have any ideas what's going to, be the follow-up to Galaxy class that's been ever so popular and has run twice now? Like, what's the next Keycap set possibly looking like to come out of Norbauer Co.?
So outside of the Star Trek world, I have been thinking about a couple of designs. Andrew from Input Club /Kono and I have recently been talking about doing one in a particular font that I've liked for a really long time, and that is somewhat of a departure from normal what fonts you normally see on key sets. I'm currently just started, actually today, drafting up what the design for that might look like. The font is called Archer, by the way. I think it was actually designed for Martha Stewart Living, oddly, but it's not necessarily a font you would closely associate with that. They've stopped using it. It was designed by a type foundry called Heffler & Co., based out of New York, which has made a lot of my favorite fonts, like Gotham, for example, which is like the Barack Obama campaign font and is now the U.S. Postal Service Priority Mail font. Lots of really iconic fonts. I like all their stuff. I particularly like Archer, and so I've been playing around with the idea of doing like a dye-sublimated key set in this very unusual font. I've also been talking to Mike at Novel Keys about their very interesting new profile that they have the idea of making over time. I like particularly those because they're interested in making them in the United States. I think that I'm saying things that are only...
Uh-oh. We lost video. And audio? Oh, we lost the... Brian, you're still here with me.
I am still here with you. Yeah.
Let's...
It might have been a connection issue. Hopefully this will solve itself in just a few seconds. Now we're on Top Clack.
Now this is the Top Clack we are all familiar with.
Top Clack we know and love. Try to call him back here.
I think this is the highest average viewer we've held for a while. Thanks, guys.
This is pretty normal lately. Lately, it's been pretty normal. It's been definitely higher lately than it was previously.
Hopefully we can get them back in a moment, but I hope you guys have been enjoying that.
Yeah.
Ryan is checking his things.
All right. Yeah. So hopefully we'll get him back momentarily, and we can run into a Q&A after not too much time here. So sorry about the technical difficulties, guys, but we are a live show, and that shit happens. Shit happens.
It's because I don't have my giant video editing broadcast station up yet.
Yes, that's the main problem. Brian's video quality is so good. Yeah, he
just got a new camera, actually. So it's even better. Actually, I don't know if it's better than the last one, because I don't think he dialed in the settings yet, other than the LUTs. But, oof. Yeah. I mean, I should probably get a... Nebulance in the channel. You probably know what's better if I should get a gray paper or vinyl background. Backdrop, I mean. I need to look up between paper and vinyl. Which one's better to get for a backdrop? Been meaning to get one for a while. It's just this one I can put on a stand, so I can assemble it and disassemble it in the future.
Sweaty Yeti, thanks again for all these bits.
Yeah,
Holy
dude.
Crap. If you look at the event feed, he is the last 4 people to do something.
Yeah, he's
crazy. He goes hard, man. We appreciate that support.
Paper is less shiny. Creases. Cloth is best. Cloth, not vinyl. I know some people have talked about vinyl. Maybe that's for pictures, not video. It looks like we're gonna get him back. He's messaged. You guys are hearing Skype sounds from me, probably. His internet did die. Just keyboards. I can get a green screen backdrop and just put like pictures of me wearing a helmet, a robot helmet. Okay, guys, I'll not done just yet. Pazal, thank you so much for that Twitch Prime 5 months in a row.
Never trust Skype. Yeah, we don't like Skype. We just it's believe it or not right now like the lesser of evil. All right, but it looks like we are making progress here.
Oh,
let me get him back into the audio while I also call him back on the video. Hopefully this will end up working out well for us. Raged an Asian saying he missed a checkpoint and had to go back, which is very meta. We've been playing a lot of Forza lately. Or Forza, sorry. I think it's an Italian.
I should just stream with like a Windows 10 default background. Like the desktop when you like boot a new Windows 10, have that, but then not take out the like, please register your Windows 10 key.
Hey guys.
Wonderful. We hear you.
Hello.
We lost you on Skype, but we have you on Discord. We got you on Skype again, and we hear you.
Okay, coming along. It's always like the most amazing technical ridiculousness we have.
We hear you twice.
All right. Yes.
Yeah, me.
No worries.
So the last time my camera was like cutting off every 5 minutes, and of course my internet dies.
Yeah, well, I mean, if things went smoothly, it would not be Top Clack. So we are very used to that, and I think our audience is as well, and it's totally
I'm
fine.
glad to conform to the house style.
Yes, that's just how casual we are here.
Excellent. What the hell was I saying?
I don't remember. Throw up. Thank you so much for the Twitch Prime sub. We appreciate that.
I think you were going off of Typefaces, Archer, and then you were talking about Mike and Novel Keys with his new profile.
Oh right, yeah. So he showed off this new profile at Keycon, which I think is very cool and interesting. It's also going to be domestically sourced, or at least they're trying for that, which I think is very cool and worthy of support. So another thing that would be really interesting, I think, would be to design something for that. It would probably just be a color combination because it'll be double shot, but that'd be cool. Again, the idea here is to actually have a more curated, limited set of finishes and options where it's really proactively matching a keycap set to the housing. So it'll be a project, but it seems like fun.
Yeah. So earlier you kind of touched on working on a new Topra keyboard project after the Heavy 6, I presume. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that, because I know a lot of people have been waiting for an HHKB project, which is much, much, much harder to do than what you've already been working on. But yeah, maybe you can shine some light on what your new Topra project would be. Yeah,
so I mean, I'm interested in the HHKB. Again, mostly because so many people ask me about it all the time. I know that some other people have mentioned that they've been interested in trying to tackle the project, Rama, for example, and I would more than happily defer to his expertise if he were going to do that. But so far as I know, he isn't or hasn't so far. So I've been poking around at the idea. I actually just disassembled and looked more closely at one yesterday, and I've been doing some 3D scanning of it. It's an incredibly complicated geometry, that plate. So it's not just it's curved in the sort of sideways dimension. The sliders themselves ride in these very narrow, tight tolerance channels. There are draft angles built into everything. Purely as a CAD modeling challenge, it's difficult. But beyond that, the question is in what material do you then replicate that extremely complicated geometry? And when you do replicate it, how do you account for shrinkage of the material? If you're doing some kind of molding process, or I can't even imagine. So I think you guys told me last time I was on, or at some point you told me that someone made for mass drop and prototype form an HHKB case that was entirely CNC machined. That's unbelievable to me. It should have cost thousands and thousands of dollars to machine that out. I can't imagine how they did it.
Yeah, I don't. I think it might have been CNC. I remember it being received pretty negatively.
Extremely negatively.
Did not like it.
Yeah, the Huey, I think you told me it was because it had unwelcome acoustic properties. It was very echoic or something like that.
Extremely unwelcome acoustic properties. It was pretty bad.
Yeah. So I've only ever seen renders of that. It's the one that was like advertised as being red, I think, right?
Yeah, there should be a
Yeah.
few pictures of the actual one around. But yeah, it was the
I
red
know
one.
Living Speed Bump has.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't talked to him in a while, but I know he has one. He's not really a fan of it, but yeah, says it sounds like a machine gun, which I guess could be cool to you depending on who you are.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I would probably, you know, I'm interested in it here again because I'm not an HHKB user, but the absurd challenge of it kind of compels me. But I'm not really, you know, I think of myself again more of as a designer in a sense. I'm not like a hardcore mechanical engineer. So, you know, I've had a little bit of experience with designing injection molding tooling, but not a lot of it. And so I can sort of reverse engineer a little bit the way that the case is built, but figuring out how to then replicate that and also get around the acoustic problems. I think you'd probably want to actually make that plate out of a plastic material, whether it's like a cast urethane or like you're actually machining it out of ABS or something. I don't know, but that's it's all a very interesting challenge, and I'm more daunted but simultaneously more interested than I was before after having really inspected it closely yesterday. So we'll see.
I know Rama, when he was kind of working on the prototypes, he was really curious to use palm as the plate material.
Yeah, I
And
think
so
that would
you
be the
would,
material.
Yeah, so it'd be like an aluminum housing, but you'd have a palm plate, and then you would source, obviously, you know, your other parts from your HHKB that you'd have to inevitably disassemble.
I think a big part of the feel of the HHKB in its current form is that plastic plate. And if you change that, you're fundamentally changing the board in a way that doesn't really make a lot of sense. You might as well, I mean, I guess there's some people who just love the layout, which is a part of the enthusiast community around the HHKB. But I think a lot of people particularly like the feel of it. I think that's certainly affected by the plate. So I would want to probably replicate that to some extent.
Yeah, to some extent, yeah, absolutely.
But even machining it out of palm would be incredibly expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine any custom HHKB project, any custom Topra HHKB project, always going outrageous expensive, just because of the sheer logistics of it.
Yeah, I mean, here I am whining about expensive keyboards, but when I just sold $2,900 ones. But so I'm not necessarily afraid of that. It's just there's a point at which it becomes, you cross the border from like lavishness to like completely unfeasible. If a prototype costs $4,000 to make, you would never get the prototyping process done, or at least I wouldn't, without feeling like I had spent a little bit too much money. So the one process I've been looking at would be using a vacuum casting process. So it's like a short run injection molding essentially. Actually, there's an in-between process, which is called RIM, or reaction injection molding. But I was thinking about, and that uses metal tooling, but it injects urethane into the mold, but the molds are much cheaper to make. But I was thinking about using silicone tooling, which is good for like about 50 pulls, and we use it a lot in the prop world. The problem is that there's you wouldn't have to individually machine out each one. You could actually mold it, but there's an inherent shrinkage factor in that, which you have to account for, and the mating surfaces between the sliders and those housings are so tight tolerance that it would be really hard to nail that. I think you'd have to go through quite a few prototypes, assuming even your CAD model were perfect and exactly like the original. You'd have to test quite a few just to get the shrinkage right. And things don't even shrink uniformly depending on their geometry. The stuff gets messy, and those silicone molds are not cheap either. But we'll see.
Yeah. So is that something you actually plan to tackle, or were you referring to a different Topra for your next project?
That was the one. Yeah, that was the one. I kind of I don't want to... I didn't want to really talk too much about it because I don't want to get people's hopes up that it's feasible, because especially after having thought about it in more serious detail and examined those sliders more closely, I think it's going to be a pretty long-term project if it's feasible at all. So might be something that I just kind of like passively work on over a long period of time. And anyone who thinks that they can help or might have some technical insight to offer, please feel free to contact me. I would be very happy to collaborate with someone on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, now's probably as good a time as ever to roll into a Q&A. We're running a little bit late in the show, but that's okay. So if you guys have questions for Mr. Norbauer or ourselves, feel free to ask away. Make sure you use the @TopClack tags. See them easier. That helps us out a lot.
I have a question. I would like to start off with a question. Ryan, as I'm sure you are one of the first people probably to know, Sir Patrick Stewart will be reprising his role as Captain Jean-Luc Picard in 2019's season for the new Star Trek. And after that announcement, Will Wheaton said he wants to reprise Wesley Crusher. Do we need more Wesley Crusher?
Well, I will say I'm very, very excited about this new series. I was in the room when they made the announcement. There were like 10,000 Star Trek fans in the room, and it just absolutely exploded in thunderous excitement. It was very cool to be there. There are many of us who, like me, have basically been waiting our entire adult lives for such an announcement. So that's pretty cool. I can't say that I'm too excited to have Wesley back, but you know, if that's the price I have to pay to get a new Picard series, I'm willing.
Fortunately, only Picard has been confirmed as a returning from TNG, and I'm kind of hoping they keep it that way. Personally,
I think it would be more interesting that way. My absurd fantasy. So I like the really boring episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation, and I like it because it's like the boring Star Trek show, and that's like I feel like you really have to play to that. And you know, again, I'm always about embracing the absurdity of things and going. Owning things, right? And so I think that the TNG sequel show should own that and be kind of boring. So, you know, there's this episode after the Best of Both Worlds, the really action-packed Borg episode, where Picard goes back to France and he's just like kind of depressed. And like, I want that to be the whole new show. Like, he's old, he's washed up, he's not in Starfleet anymore, and he's just like calling upon neighbors to like reminisce or discuss philosophy or something. That's what I want. That's what I'm hoping for. We'll see.
All right, so we have a few questions rolling in already. Meow Meow and Meow is asking, will there be a Norba Force round 1.61803? If yes, will that round have a heavy? Interesting question.
You mean like a steel backplate?
The monolith equivalent of the Norba.
Oh.
Probably is what he's...
So that, I mean, again, that would be really expensive because the footprint of the Norba Force is significantly larger. So you have to start with a really big chunk of steel. But to answer the broader question of like whether I would do another Norba Force again, so I really have not wanted to because there's a lot of like sourcing the PCB and the rubber feet and the lots of little components to it that were more custom and annoying to work out than most people would probably appreciate. So I was hoping, honestly, never to do another run of it again, as much as I love that. I think it's my favorite thing I've done by far. But a friend of mine recently sent me one of the R2 Real Forces from Japan. And it's like, so it's not compatible with the Norba Force case, but it's just almost compatible. And so I'm so tempted to now adapt the design to create one that's cross-compatible with those new keyboards and the old one. And, you know, again, once my brain sort of gets going on an interesting design challenge, then suddenly I become interested again. So maybe eventually I will do another run of that, but only if I can figure out how to make it cross-compatible, which would also require designing that breakout PCB again, because I have no idea why, but they made a small arbitrary change to the wiring of the new R2 keyboards, where the ground wire is not broken out anymore. You know how there's like a separate ground wire that screws into the plate on the Real Forces? Now that's part of that Molex connector, which used to be a 4-pin Molex connector. It's not actually Molex, but it's Molex-like, you know? It's used to be a 4-pin connector, now it's 5 pins, and the ground is part of the connector. So to make a breakout PCB, it would have to have 2 connectors on it, and it would have to be, you'd have to write some sort of well, it doesn't actually have a microcontroller, but you'd have to wire it up in such a way that it could like intelligently flip between which of the 2 options you're using. So it's a non-trivial undertaking, but maybe.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool. Nebulant is asking, question for Ryan: is Motorsport the most rare Heavy 6?
By far. I think only just like 3 people or something have gotten it. I don't know. I'm not really sure why that is. Maybe my pictures of it aren't good or something, because I actually think it's really, I really like it in person. Maybe just because it's so unusual. You don't often see keyboards in that color, period. And that color plus texture. I don't know. I like it. It reminds me of Ferrari or something, which is why I liked and picked that color. So it has the advantage of, if you select it, of being exceedingly rare.
Polyzoo with a good yet lengthy question. Just out of curiosity, for folks who don't know about your passion for keyboard, how do you explain to them about the hobby in a way that's not only reasonable, but potentially relatable and might pique their interest? Do you think it's possible to convince folks that keyboards can be taken seriously and hold value as a product akin to something like high-end watches? Breaking down those preconceptions are tough, but just curious if you have any strategy to tackle that.
So that's, I mean, you've essentially given my answer there in your question. It's a very interesting and thoughtful question, which I appreciate and think about not infrequently. But I do, the most frequent analogy that I will cite is watches, because it's really a highly analogous line of products, or however you want to think of it, because it uses similar materials to what we use on higher end keyboards. It's also something that is kind of notionally functional, but really like that you could entirely do without, or you could have the most like cheap $1 solution to the function that it provides. And yet there are people, you know, who derive tremendous meaning from their watch collecting and their watch obsessing. There's this great website, I think I mentioned it also last time I was on, called Hodinky, which is just like a magazine about watches and people who are into watches. And they have really great video interviews where they'll just like, people will kind of, they'll just have like this hour-long interview with someone who's really into watches, but they'll just really be talking all about that person's life and the ways in which watches have played some part in little aspects of their life. But clearly these are objects that are like deeply meaningful to people, and they love the tactile experience of winding the watch, or having a watch that winds itself, or the materials, the history, the artistic curation aspect of it. I think it's highly analogous, and it's something that a lot of people know about, right? So you can frequently cite it, and it's what I do when I tell people about, like, or try to explain to somebody why somebody would spend so much money on a keyboard, which is that it's like, it's something that fuses a functional object with, or infuses a functional object with a great deal of like artistic properties that just make an everyday task more interesting, right? And yeah. I think that's pretty analogous. It usually helps people understand.
Yeah, so that's a pretty good answer. Yeah, because I mean, when you really get down to it, obviously, no one really needs a super fancy keyboard. Like we're here because it's primarily a hobby.
Because we want to be here.
Yeah, you can argue that there are some functional or ergonomic benefits to mechanical keyboards, or specific mechanical keyboards, but at the end of the day, most of us can use a $5 keyboard and get most of the same functionality.
I think that's true.
I mean, that's not why we're here. So
yeah. I mean, so my view absolutely is that this is a domain of art, and those of us who are into keyboards are really pretty nerdy people who don't probably tend to think of things in those terms. But fundamentally, it's about adding some kind of artistic interest to the monotony of existence, right? And that can take the form of tactile experience, it can take the form of acoustic auditory experience and visual experience. But at any rate, it's just about crafting the aesthetic world that we live in. And for better or worse, most people spend most of their lives in front of their computer. It's a very immediate part of our aesthetic environment that we touch all day long. That seems worthy of trying to elevate that object sometimes.
Absolutely. It's Undone is asking 980C Norbauer case win. Also, leave HHKB as it is.
So what was that last bit about the HHKB?
Leave it as it is, according to him.
Okay, interesting. You guys can remind me, that's the bigger one, right? That has the sort of keys all... Yeah.
The 980C is the Leopold's 1800 style Topria keyboard. They have an MX version as well. That's the M. The C is still the Topria.
Yeah, so again, people ask me about this not infrequently, and other larger keyboards, larger than TKL keyboards. But and again, I will remark upon the slight hypocrisy of talking about the price of things, given everything else I've just said tonight. But it seems that the cost of CNC machining of objects from large billets of metal scales upward non-linearly with the volume of the object. So once you start so a lot of CNC machined parts are made in objects with a work envelope that is, pretty suited to the kinds of, to machine parts, right? Which are usually not actually as large as a 100% keyboard. So it's more specialized equipment is required to work on these very large parts. And I think that's why I tend to get quoted much higher prices for boards that are just a little bit bigger. And I have actually tried to get some larger boards quoted, and they seem to be astonishingly larger in cost in a way that isn't, as I say, directly linear with the increase in volume of material of the case. So that's put me off it a little bit, especially since that combined with the fact that if you kind of look around at keyboard meetups, what people seem to have is more in the sort of TKL to 60% range, So I feel like those two things conspire to make the economics of it very difficult. There would be probably smaller numbers of people who wanted it, plus the fact that it's just inherently so much more expensive that it just feels like it would be problematic. But I don't know. That's my current thinking on larger keyboards.
Fair enough. Geo asking, can I get some sweet ST gear somehow for free? What is ST gear?
Star Trek.
Yeah, I don't know. What does that mean?
Oh, Star Trek. Oh, okay. Oh.
For free, you say?
Oh,
let's see. Where can get cool Star Trek gear for free? I can't think of anywhere. Yeah, sorry.
That's fine. We'll move on to a more real question.
Sure.
CPang05 is asking Ryan, what comprises your own personal keyboard collection? How many of your works do you actually keep around?
Well, so thank you for calling them works. That's very generous of you. Again, embracing this idea of thinking of them as art objects, which I appreciate at some level. But honestly, I'm not a collector of keyboards. I got into this because I wanted to have a really nice keyboard on my desk. I now frequently have samples around and stuff like that. I've been trying to keep some around so that I can take them to meetups and show people what different finishes look like and sort of talk about the processes and what makes certain finishes or materials different without having to describe it verbally, but can actually show people. But I'm not the collecting sort. It's just not my thing. I just I want to have my one ultimate keyboard, and I switch that out frequently, I guess, based on kind of whatever random spare parts I have. I tend to worry more about what I'm sending to other people than what I'm actually using myself. So I'll take things that have cosmetic blemishes or whatever, and I'll use that as my keyboard. Right now I have a Norbauer that actually is in a finish that never was part of the Norbauer group buy, which is the aperture finish from the Heavy 6, which Huey now has 2 of sitting on his desk, which is this interesting sort of finish that is borrowed from certain high-end Leica cameras. It's very much like that finish. I don't know what Leica calls it, but it's like a sort of light gray hammer tone with sort of darker gray peaks. And I really like the kind of running my fingers along the texture of it as I type. And I like the look of it. So that's what I'm currently using.
Nice. Talisman Solutions is asking, what was Ryan's formal education, major, and university?
I went to West Virginia University. I'm a fellow West Virginian, along with the folks at Novel Keys, which is a pretty cool coincidence. They actually operate in a town that's just like 15 minutes away from where I grew up. So I got they paid me to go to West Virginia University. I didn't just get to go for free. So that's where I went to school. And I studied psychology and French were my two majors. Particularly in studying French, I was interested in French philosophy and sort of focused on that. And then after that, I did political science for a while before going off and starting a startup.
Nice.
So I have no training whatsoever as an industrial designer or anything that I have ever done professionally. I have no claim to do to any credentials in that realm.
That is totally fine. All right, Red Soap 2 is asking a question. Huey, in your opinion, what is the best switch for a poly half plate? Asking for Jane V2.
Your favorite tactile. For you yourself, your favorite tactile. I'm getting a half plate as well. Yes, I'm going to, I don't know what I'm going to put. Some kind of tactile. So my advice is for half plate, poly, some kind of tactile. Go for it.
There you go. Bug Whisper with a question for Ryan. If you are getting bored with / phasing out Topra, have you given any thought to resurrecting older keyboard technologies like Hall Effect or Beam Spring bespoke items?
I wouldn't say that I'm getting bored with Topra exactly, although perhaps exhausting some of the interesting prevalent options. But my original keyboard that I fell in love with as a young person was an IBM buckling spring. And it would be interesting, I think, to make some kind of really nice housing for one of those. But again, it faces that problem of they're mostly 100% ones. So it would not be a trivial undertaking, but I would like to do that, actually. Purely for the nostalgia value, especially because then I could really kind of embrace that and lean into those aesthetics of doing something kind of retro.
Yeah,
it's something I've thought about. Yeah,
absolutely. All right.
These projects take a really long time, though. So every time I come around to go on your show or go to meetups or whatever, all people ever ask is are you going to do this one or are you going to do that board? I always think it's going to take 4 months, and then it actually takes a year to develop one of these projects because it's designing the CAD model. Actually designing the keyboard takes a couple of days, but then you have to spend literally a year figuring out how to get it made and all the different finishes and getting feedback from people about maybe different configurations or thinking about how the acoustics, what they'll be like, getting prototypes, following 10 different dead ends about manufacturers, and stuff takes a long time. So there's really only so much a person can do.
Talisman Solutions with another question saying, tell us a little about your former life as a software developer.
Sure. It will be a really boring conversation, but I'll try to describe it briefly. My first startup that I mentioned, which was what I did after college, was an online dating startup. And we built that. It was originally written in PHP. And then I learned about this amazing technology at the time called Ruby on Rails, which was sort of transforming the way people wrote web applications. And I got very involved in the Ruby on Rails community early on. Went to the first RailsConf, did a lot of writing that ended up being popular, kind of advocating for Rails as a technology. And so while I was running this startup, I simultaneously got tons of requests from people wanting me to help them write code for their startup. And so I happen to also know a lot of developers in the Rails world who were looking for good clients. So it struck me as a business opportunity to sort of put the two of those people together and start a business around project managing that kind of stuff. So that's what I did for a long period of time. It was probably my more successful business of any of the ones that I've run. The startup was not so much. what I did, you would probably describe more as like the role of a software architect. So I did like a lot of designing of the data models, writing of documentation of like how the UI should interact, and just like thinking about the overall structure of the application, and then working with developers to actually write the tests and then write the code and do the actual implementation. So I wasn't like, I was sort of, for most of what I was doing, it was at a slightly higher level than actually doing a lot of coding on a day-to-day basis. So that probably is the best description of my time as a software engineer. Again, totally untrained, just grew out of my enthusiasm for this technology in Ruby on Rails. I just taught myself how to use it.
Nice. NGB is asking, does Ryan talk with other designers to bounce ideas off of? Also, waffles or pancakes?
I think I addressed this last time. Although, I addressed the latter question last time, which is that I'm really into waffles. Although nowadays I'm on a keto diet, so I actually don't consume any flour at all, which is a tragedy. But what can you do? So I guess the answer is neither. The first question was, do I talk to other designers? Actually, I talk to a lot of people in the community, some of whom are like part-time designers, like Olivia, for example. She definitely has a lot of design ideas and opinions and has designed her key set and stuff like that. So I would think of her as a designer. I was just asking her opinion about desk mats the other night. She's going to be my first test subject because I found she's really into the color rose gold, and I found rose gold leather. This is like this special, like really high-end leather maker in France that makes rose gold goat leather. So I'm going to try to make her a custom like heavy 6 desk mat that will be made out of rose gold leather. And so I kind of like, I try to find people who would maybe be super excited about this particular project I might want to do and go to them for like the first feedback, I met up with a friend of mine, a really nice guy who wrote me, who lives in LA recently when I was down there last week. We talked a lot about desk mats and various design ideas. But I tend to more go to like what would be called community members, I guess, than designers. Not for any particular reason. I would love to know more designers better. I have like, for example, great admiration for everything that Rama does. I met him in LA once a long time ago, but we actually don't speak very much online. There are a lot of other people who do really cool stuff. I just haven't really had an occasion to talk to them too extensively. But if anybody ever wants to talk, look me up.
Gio is asking, is Ryan wearing another awesome Star Trek shirt this time?
I am wearing an Instagram shirt.
A far cry from Star Trek.
Yeah, not for any particular reason, except that I kind of like this shade of purple.
Huang Vu is asking, so about the bag, is it enough to protect the keyboard from slight bumps from daily travel? It looks kind of thin.
Yeah, so I would call it slight bumps. It's definitely explicitly padded, and it's about as much padding as I could talk the bag manufacturer into incorporating in it, because as you add layers, it becomes more difficult to sew. And I think also that foam is kind of a little on the expensive side that he's using. So it's definitely like, it is the purpose of the bag is really to protect it and also to protect it against sort of what I might call casual bumps. But I wouldn't like hold it up at, 6 feet and drop it onto a concrete floor, right? That's probably going to damage any keyboard in any bag. So in no way does it claim to protect against that kind of assault on the keyboard. But from just sort of like everyday wear and tear, it's better than carrying it out by itself or putting it in a plastic bag. It is explicitly a padded bag. Last week I was actually visiting a vacuum forming factory down in outside of LA that was doing some Star Trek stuff for me on a Roddenberry project, and I've actually talked to them about the possibility of doing custom vacuum formed inserts on a hard shelled case. Which would actually be extremely protective. So they have these cases that they're made out of some kind of like carbon fiber reinforced vacuum formed plastic. And they have like an aluminum frame around the outside of the briefcase. And then inside of it, you would put these 2 layers of vacuum formed plastic that exactly conform to whatever, like it would be kind of an insert that would vary based on which of my keyboard designs you were going to put inside of it. And then it would literally be completely suspended in air. There would be an air gap between the interior shell of the keyboard and the exterior shell of the hard shell case. And these hard shell cases are pretty rigid, so you'd really have to go very far out of your way to in any way damage the keyboard inside. It would be sort of suspended in this like springy plastic shell. That'd be pretty cool, and I think it probably is feasible. The problem with that is you have to create these molds that are quite large, and they CNC machine them out of this material called RenShape, which is a sort of a modeling foam. The material is expensive, and also the machining is expensive. So you wouldn't want to like just casually do it to make like 40 of these cases. So the question really is there enough interest in something like that to justify making like 200 of them? And I'm not really sure if that's true or not. We'll see. I'll see how the TKL bags do. If people are like really into keyboard bags, I'm very excited to dive into that and explore various possibilities. But as far as I'm concerned, it's kind of an untested thing. I know like people are very happy to buy keyboard housings from me, but I don't really know how interested they are in buying bags from me. So we'll see. As with everything that I make, it tends to be like, unfortunately, the stuff that I do tends to get popular after I no longer have any to sell. And people always want me to make more of it. So it's kind of just like the word slowly gets out about stuff that you make as like, you know, people will see my keyboards on other people's desks. And I think the same thing will happen. Like people will see other people carrying the bag around. But since it's the first time I've been doing it, like the Heavy 6 bag, for example, the sales have not been tremendous on it. It's not terrible either, but it's definitely a minority of people who are getting the case or getting a minority of people who are getting the Heavy 6 are also getting the carrying case.
Right. And Dino93 is asking, do you think that 60% to TKL is more popular because custom kits are more readily available? I think it's just more, that's what people like to use.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why they're more popular.
I mean, the smaller boards require habit breaking, right? For people who grew up using normal keyboards, right? And habit breaking always is, you know, there's a certain behavioral inertia that people have. And I think that's probably what causes the tail to become thinner as the keyboards get smaller.
I will be right back, but continue on, Brian and Ryan.
Sure. Gio asked a question in what I'm assuming is French, and I don't speak French, so I'm not even going to try to butcher.
Unfortunately, I can't see the text here, or I'd probably be able to read it.
I could not pronounce any of those words, so you probably wouldn't even understand if I tried. Bug Whisper subs, tier 1 sub. Appreciate that, my friend. Thank you so much. Lunar Sama asking, is there any exotic materials that you want to try one day?
Yeah, I mean, that's a question for me, I presume?
Yeah, for both of us. It's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, why don't you answer first, Brian?
I think the answer is kind of just no. I don't really care. It's more just I'm always down to try new. That's anybody that knows me knows that what I like more in this community than any material, any switch, any mounting method or keycap or whatever is variety. Variety is my favorite thing in the community. So I'm always interested to try more things, but I'm the farthest thing from a materials expert. I don't know about a lot of things. I know tungsten is something a lot of people have been wanting to try. I think that'd be cool. Copper is starting to become slightly more popular in the keyboard community. I think that's pretty cool. Lots of things I haven't tried yet. I'm still interested to try 5mm polycarbonate plate. I think that's going to be kind of interesting. Palm is becoming more interesting. I have a palm plate on the way shortly, hopefully. So that could be cool to test out. But I mean, I kind of just take it as it goes. There's nothing I'm really super looking forward to in the future as far as materials.
Yeah, all of the materials that I'm interested in are the ones that are extremely impractical. So I love concrete as a material. I think that would make a really great housing. There's a fellow who had, I apologize for not remembering his name, but there was a fellow who had an excellent, really heavy concrete keyboard at the Seattle meetup. And I've always wanted to do a sort of TKL concrete keyboard, but again, there are challenges of shrinkage and stuff like that. So It's something I've been putting off doing, but I think concrete is a really beautiful material. But I would want to figure out how to do it in a way that didn't actually weigh 25 pounds, because there's a point at which heaviness becomes impractical, especially when the object is one that would smash into bits if you drop it on the ground. But I think that's cool. I think I saw somebody did a concrete keycap recently, like a concrete artisan.
Yes, I believe so.
I remember seeing that on Reddit. That was really beautiful. So I like that. You guys know I like a Corian. I'm always going on about the Corian. Never actually made anything in Corian yet. But I think those are the main two materials that I've been interested in lately. Copper is interesting, Brian. You mentioned that. Like, how do people address the oxidation issue? Do they just let it oxidize and embrace that, or?
I think that's generally how people go these days. A lot of people really like that patina look.
Yeah.
It is what it is. But I mean, I'm like I said before, I'm far from a materials expert. But can't you seal copper like you might brass?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you can there are lots of things you can do to prevent it from oxidizing. There's kind of like copper goes through this awkward period when it goes from like being beautiful copper color to basically just being ugly black, to then getting a sort of this verdigris finish, which is this greenish gray. I like the two ends, but I don't like that sort of boring black period. There's probably some way to apply acid or something to like hasten that process to get to the green, but I've never tried it before. There was what I think was a sand cast bronze keyboard housing at Keycon in Pittsburgh that was amazing. I kept asking around trying to figure out whose keyboard it was, and I couldn't actually get an answer to that. But apparently it looked like someone had sculpted a master for the keyboard housing out of clay. So it looked very handmade. It was very textural on the finish, and then it looked like it had been sand cast, something like that for the metal, and then it had been oxidized, probably with acid or something. So it did have this like greenish oxidation on it. It was really, really beautiful, and had sort of the opposite of a lot of keyboard design embraces the sort of industrial aesthetic and hardcore machining and all of that, which I like and appreciate. But this just went as far as you could in the other direction of looking super handmade, very like Bronze Age in a way. I really like that keyboard. I want. If anybody knows whose keyboard that was, please let me know, because I've been wanting to talk to who designed it. It's really awesome.
The top clack community is strong. Someone out there knows.
Yes.
Yeah, someone answer this.
Real quick, I guess we're on the question about exotic materials, right? I have one thing, and it's related to keyboards, but in terms of actually desk mats. So this is also a pitch to you, Ryan, because I know this is also... It's industrial design related, which you'll like, but it's also very impractical to make and ship, which you won't like. So I'm going to pitch it to you, okay?
Okay.
A large desk mat that's just an anodized sheet of aluminum.
Huh. Yeah, I don't see why not. Like how large?
3 foot by 2 foot.
3 foot by 2 foot. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's even challenging in leather because you're limited by the actual size of the animal. It's something I hadn't really thought about too much before, but when you buy leather by the hide when you go to these places, and it's very obviously used to be a cow. You kind of you sort of think of it as coming, I don't know, somehow I thought it came on bolts, like fabric. No, actually, no, it's an animal, and animals vary in size and they only get so big. So really, again, with a lot of these things in manufacturing, costs scale non-linearly. So getting a huge single piece of good leather is way more expensive than getting two smaller pieces of the same size, So this is going to be a challenge for me on desk mats, is figuring out how to make it big enough to suit my taste, which just may not be feasible. I don't know. But there are also possibilities for making smaller ones. But aluminum, on the other hand, you can get as big as you want, but as you say, shipping is not super convenient. That's feasible. What you mentioned, that size.
Because whenever I really love the idea of having just a nice soft anodized aluminum surface for where I work, because good anodized aluminum feels very soft and luscious. I very much like that very cool feel. So
do you like the cold to the touch feeling?
Yeah, I like that cold to the touch feeling for aluminum.
Yeah.
That's why I kind of like the idea of it. Obviously 3 foot by 2 foot. That's just like a personal preference. But like whenever I look online for like an aluminum desk pad, they're always like little mouse mats that are like this big. Which I'm like, no, I want like under my keyboard, under my mouse area. I want to work on a nice anodized aluminum. And for me, mouse tracking isn't a big deal because I use a trackball.
Sure.
But I'm sure that's an issue for other people.
Yeah, I mean, there are companies that make black anodized aluminum large mouse pads. The like Razer makes one, for example. It's like $80 or $100, but which is kind of funny for a mouse pad. But it's certainly like it's a thing that is done and people like it. So might as well take it to the next step and just have your keyboard sit underneath of it. It's not a probably super interesting design challenge.
Yeah, it's just a slab of aluminum.
I'd be the one to tackle it. Yeah. You also want something to keep it from moving around, sliding around underneath. So probably just like a leather or a rubber mat or something. But.
Yep.
Nebulant with another question for Ryan. What do you think about the success of Kickstarter's higher end bags, like Peak Designs line of goods?
Oh, I quite like Peak Designs. So this is I think he's talking about the he or she. Sorry, the bag that is. They started out making camera bags, I think, but they make a lot of stuff now. Do you guys know?
Peak Designs, yes. I think Nathan
so.
has talked and has said good things about them, I believe.
Yeah, so I remember watching with great interest their first Kickstarter, which was I think a camera bag. Now they have this whole like ecosystem of products, but I mean I think that's really cool. I mean I have certain varying feelings about Kickstarter in general, but there are certainly specific ones that I quite like a lot, and Peak Designs would be a good example of that. There are a number of interesting companies doing, including companies based in the United States, doing bag design these days. It's one of the things that's actually feasible to do here in some ways, and I think a lot of people get into it because the equipment that's required to start a bag making factory is pretty modest. You can get an industrial walking foot sewing machine for like $2,000, but a Haas CNC machine, the cheapest you could possibly reasonably do production, keyboard housings with is like $40,000, and really that's kind of inadequate. So there's a lot of companies do it, like Tom Bin, for example, GoRuck. There are all these companies based in the United States making really interesting bag designs. Peak is one of them, although I don't think that. So it's a U.S. company, but I don't think they're actually manufacturing here. Sorry, that was just a random rant on bags.
Oh no, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
We do have some pretty loaded questions coming up though, so we will have to move into more of a lightning round. Try to
sounds good.
Through some of these.
Yeah.
First off, is Apocalypse asking for Ryan on a personal note. Since you're here, are you all right with me posting a video/photo of the prototype Heavy 6 before/after Cerakoting?
Yeah.
Nice.
Of course.
Violet Viceroy asking, where do you get your design inspiration? What kind of forms and figures are you interested in integrating into your designs?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. So I go through like little obsessions with different designers and aesthetic periods. I've mentioned before I'm really into mid-century modernism, especially since moving to California where it's much more prevalent. Lately, I've been really into this company, a French company that makes like luxury leather goods called Hermès. They make a lot of actual like desk accessories, and I've been kind of very closely studying how they make a lot of the like desk mats and stuff like that, and I've been very interested in how they approach a lot of things, and particularly their leather work. There are these amazing videos online that just talk about how they, as a company, approach making stuff and selling things and like infusing art into what they do and keeping old trades alive. And their particular specialty is in leatherwork, which is how I got interested in it. I was like reading about like who makes the best leather goods and like what tools and processes do they use, so I can then get them to use in my prototyping, which I can then sort of like make sure that the factory is using if I'm going to make desk mats. So I took this like really deep dive lately into Hermès, the company and its history and their design. And I've been like going to their stores and like closely looking at stuff and taking pictures of it. And so I've been taking a lot of inspiration from them lately, for better or worse, which is not necessarily good for my for my finances because I found a couple of things that I really liked and bought, and my God, they're unbelievably expensive, everything they make. But they do really cool stuff. I've been into them lately. All the obvious things like Apple, and I've always really liked the company Mont Blanc. They have this really cool pen that a designer whose name I forget came out with recently that has this like sort of milled chunk taken out of it, which I think is really cool. Sorry, it would be much better if I could give you the specific name of either the pen or the designer, but I've always liked Mont Blanc as a company too. So I don't know. I just I go to the mall and I look at what weird designs are out there, and for better or worse, like tends to be luxury stores that are doing like the weirder, more out there kind of stuff, either in terms of materials or design. So I just kind of I go walk around the Stanford Shopping Center and I see what's there, trying not to buy any of it and instead just using it for inspiration.
Trying being the keyword.
Yeah.
All right, Huang Fu is asking, so out of the recently new switches, Otemu's new switches, New Zeal lineup, Novelty's new switches, what's your favorite in term of linear/tactile, and why? Also, do you have any opinion on the new Holy Chickies that people have been hyping up recently?
You want to take this first, Brian, or do you want me to take this first?
I guess your answer is going to be longer than mine, so I'll start because I haven't even used Holy Chickies before. So out of a lot of the new switches that have been coming out, I think my favorite in terms of linear and tactile, and why. Well, I'd say tactile. These new Helios are probably what are piquing my interest the most right now, which I haven't yet put into a board. They feel like they have the most potential out of everything else I've felt. I also really like Hako Royal collabs. I think those are pretty good and kind of underrated switches. I don't see a whole lot of people using them, but that's just what I see. I think both of those are very good. Linears, in terms of smoothness, Helios really are still kind of the king in my eyes. So yeah, that's kind of where I am now. I haven't used Holy. Hopefully Huey can elaborate more on that.
I haven't built a whole board of Holy Chickies. Still debating whether or not I want to. I did get some more Halo switches in the last Smash Drop little thing, so I can do it because I do have like 100 MX Blues lying around. I built 2 Holy Chickies. Those issues I had with binding because of the top, so if I want to proceed, I need to change the tops out. So I have mixed feelings about that, but they did feel decent, the 2 Holy Chickies I built, aside from the binding itself. But for me, the most exciting tactiles are, I just built, that I'm using right now, the new Helios V2, which are very crisp in their tactility. Big fan of it. So those are the most exciting for me right now. But aside from those, that's actually mostly it for tactiles. It's been really exciting me. For linears, while they're very generic, all the different Gatoron clones that have been coming out, like exclusive Gatorons, Tangerine switches, a lot of them are just kind of fun because you can use them as like a blank canvas because Gatorons are pretty smooth, and they're like pretty, I guess, like vanilla switches where you can change a lot in the feel by using different lubes and different springs. So I like using the Gatoron clones or just Gatoron linears just as a canvas for that. But if you want in terms of if I want to make the best linear for myself, I would go with Helios, like Brian said, and I would just do the same exact thing I did for my Unicorn.
All right. And of course, Ryan, you are free to answer that question as well if that's something you're into. I know
you're taking me a little bit out of my realm of expertise here.
Yeah,
I'm very fond of Helios switches, actually.
You are or not?
I am, yeah.
Okay.
The color of the slider or the stem, I guess, is it's identical to the first round retro refrigerator color of my cases. They're both of which are basically just a replication of Tiffany blue.
Yeah. Yep, it is pretty nice though. All right, so that actually ends our questions, which is pretty cool. Since we've gone a little bit over time, but that seems to be the norm lately. Some people like it, some people don't. Oh well. Cyber Sam, thank you very much for the Twitch Prime sub. So yeah, now's Now that we're done with questions, probably a good time to wrap up, Huey, if you want to take us out.
Yeah, I'll say once again, thank you everyone so much. And again to Ryan, thank you so much for spending your evening talking to us here on Top Clack. Thank you everyone who has tuned in, watched. Thank you everyone who has subscribed, donated bits. Of course, thank you to all of our sponsors who make this possible. You know, last but not least, feel free to check out all the awesome stuff that Brian and I are working on. You can hang out with us in the Discord, link down below. Our YouTube channel, I just threw up 3 new typing sounds. I'm going to throw up like 3 more tonight, or tomorrow probably. I threw up my video on Ryan's Heavy 6, which you should check out if you haven't had a chance. And of course, check out Ryan's Heavy 6 on the Norbauer shop. Would highly recommend. And check out the bags. If you're curious about them, you want more information, check my video. I had fun making it. It was a bit rushed, but I had fun. So
It was arty.
it was very, very artsy. Yes.
I liked it.
I didn't actually
so of
talk
course-
about the video, the keyboard for like the first third of the video.
Well done. I enjoyed it.
I made it like halfway through that video so far before we started the show today, and I was like, what am I watching?
It's a little vignette of Huey's life.
It was pretty great, though. I really appreciate that kind of stuff in yes.
It's your
Anyway.
foray into lifestyle porn.
Well, everyone, thank
The
you
news.
so much. Of course, every Thursday is another episode of Top Clack. Brian said he probably won't be ending up streaming today for his build stream, but Saturday is most likely when Brian's going to be taking Screwdriver to Screw for that tofu and building with some new Zeal V2 switches. So keep that in your mind this weekend, and I'll have some more videos about that as well.
I
So
was
until
really
then,
hoping to stream tonight
Yeah.
using this new stuff, but I don't have a screwdriver bit that fits thin enough and deep enough into this hole of the windkeyless tofu. Like they're really absurdly small, So I'm waiting on some new tools so I can be able to open this, so I can actually play around with it. So I need to replace the stabs, and if I have any of the hot swap sockets break off when I'm trying to put switches in, then I'm kind of screwed for the build until I can open it up. So I have to postpone that, sadly, but that should happen either tomorrow or Saturday, depending on when I get that screwdriver kit in, and then I can use all these fancy new Zelios and Helios and something.
Mhm.
It'll be a good time.
So, until next time, thank you everyone so much for watching. We'll catch you next time.